Hello, this is part 6 and the final installment of our series today. This is going to be a little bit of a sadder part because it's discussing attachment in later life and through death of a parent. And so the song that I wrote for this topic, I actually wrote about 13 years ago. Maybe even more than that. I was 19 or 20. And at this point in my life, I had worked for a few years as a CNA in the nursing home in my hometown. And I was also watching my grandpas. I always was pretty close with my grandpas growing up. And it's around this time that both of them kind of had different health problems arising. And I could just kind of see the signs of, this is kind of starting to go downhill. And based on what I was seeing at my job and the people that I worked with. And so the song is kind of about taking care of somebody at the end of life. And the chorus goes, "I can see you're fading, but I say you're fine. I know we're getting closer. We're so short on time." And it's just about watching somebody kind of lose their autonomy. And when the lyrics say, "I say you're fine," that's not an attempt to lie to somebody, but more so an attempt to comfort, because in end of life, a lot of people have a lot of anxiety. I remember when I was working at the nursing home, when people I worked night shift for quite a bit, and a lot of the time getting a lot of call lights. Am I going to be okay? Am I all right? Am I safe? Is something wrong? And doing my best to comfort, but also kind of being I can see that, things are kind of going downhill and it's sad. Something that I read about in preparation for this video was that that attachment, our attachment style affects people throughout the whole lifespan. So starting when we're infants and toddlers and our childhood and throughout our relationships in adulthood and to the end of life, whether we have secure or insecure or avoidant attachment, whatever it is, it affects us. And so one way that they noticed this in some of the papers was that people with insecure attachment tended to be very anxious when they were receiving care at end of life, and people who had more of an avoidant style. I can't remember what the description was for that at the moment, but secure individuals were better able to deal with the dependency and the loss of autonomy that they experience later in life better than the other styles. So it's interesting how throughout your whole life, your attachment influences your relationships and your experience of life. There's a big role reversal, like I mentioned in the previous video, that there can sometimes in middle adulthood even be that role reversal. But by late adulthood, eventually there's often a point where the adult child becomes the caretaker for their parents in late adulthood. And often that's hard for the parent to lose, the ability to take care of themselves, to lose the ability to be independent. An example is that my grandma is 96, and at her birthday last year, so her 95th birthday, my parents and aunts and uncles all went out to celebrate with her, and they, asked, "So, what do you think of being 95? And I think they were expecting something like wise or, just some life advice kind of thing. And what her response was, "I wish you hadn't taken my car away." which is understandable because she had been driving up till she was 95 years old, which is amazing. But there comes a point where it's not really safe, and so we take care of people because we love them, and sometimes that means that independence isn't safe anymore. And so another couple things that I learned just about in losing parents after they pass away is that, interestingly, people's memories of parents can serve as silent attachment figures even after the parents pass away. So when dealing with parental loss, some people continue to communicate in their minds with their parents. And I think that it makes sense, and maybe in saying that, it's something that you can relate with, even because I can relate with that. Others turn to prayer or spiritual beliefs to cope with their grief. Wanted to touch on, at the end of the song of Short on Time, there's a mention of God, because in my grief of losing grandparents, that was a part of my process of coping. And so whatever your beliefs are, this song is still for you. But I just wanted to mention that because a lot of people do turn to spirituality and faith in times of loss. So all that to say, thanks for joining me in this series. I've never done anything like it, and I do hope it's helpful or informational. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks.